So this morning I called two Zimbabwean historians who recently published a book entitled Remembering Colonialism. This book was published by Routledge, and a copy of it can be accessed on the link that I'm going to paste right in the description panel on the upload for this video. So I'm joined by Dr. Ivan Marowa, who is currently a senior lecturer in the Department of History at the University of Zimbabwe. I'm also joined by Dr. Ushehwedu Kufakurinani, who is currently a lecturer in international development at the University of Sussex. Enjoy the show. Right, so thank you very much, gentlemen, for making the time to give this interview. I'm very excited to have you today. I'm going to start first with Dr. Marowa. I would just want you to briefly break down what you consider to be the core ideas of this book and maybe its central argument.
Thank you very much, Chikumbu, for inviting us to this session and to talk about our recently published book titled Remembering Colonialism in Zimbabwe. So this book revisits the years of colonial encounter, focusing particularly on Zimbabwe, and we are doing that through the lens of remembering. And it is our hope that the ideas and the arguments that we make in the book relate with what happened in other parts of the country, particularly the African continent. So the central argument of the book is that colonial experiences and stories are now an indispensable part of Zimbabwe's history, Zimbabwe's memory, or if you take it broadly, of Africa's memory or colonial history. So when we look at that collective history that happened, depending on the years that each colonial country went through. In the case of Zimbabwe, we are looking at 1890 to 1980. So if you are going to South Africa, then you are looking at 1652 to 1994. So depending on the country, we are saying those colonial experiences, have become an indispensable part, right? We can no longer say, we don't want to be associated with that past, no matter how good, no matter how bad, or how destructive that colonial past was. We know in the case of Zimbabwe, we went through the second Chimurenga, the violent liberation struggle that resulted in Zimbabwe gaining its independence. And when people look back, there are those encounters that they feel should not be talked about, should not be remembered. Mm-hmm. But we are saying in this book that when we seem to forget, or when we tell people that we have forgotten, or when we are silent about those years or those experiences, we are actually telling a story. Right. So this is our general argument that runs throughout the book. So in doing that, we are saying we should embrace both the good and the bad past, right? And in doing that, we manage to give meaning to the present and also shape our future expectations. So remembering is used as a lens, to try and understand these colonial encounters, and in a way, engage indirectly, though, with the discourse of decoloniality.
Yes.
Right? But more specifically, contributing to studies that focus on memory and remembering. So we have different contributors in the book. Some who are looking at church missionaries from the time they entered the Zimbabwean landscape. Some that are looking at the political economy from colonial times until the post-colonial period. We also have, I think, two chapters that look at the speeches that have been made at different fora, national events, national holidays, at international gatherings, and so on by political leaders, especially presidential speeches. Then we also have a chapter that deals with housewives, from a feminist perspective, centering on white women. And then, of course, we have another one that takes a physical landscape approach that deals with place naming, and which is connected to issues of political power. So these are the issues that you find in this book. And another one that also looks at that deals with forced movement of local indigenes. So you from this collection, you find that we are saying perceptions of colonialism are diverse, right? They are fluid, they are complex, they are divided, they present varied experiences. So we cannot present one narrative about colonialism. We cannot remember it the same way, because we can have a national memory about colonialism, but there is always going to be specific experiences, because in Zimbabwe we have different ethnic groups that experienced colonialism in different ways. So we are not saying the national memory is wrong, but we are saying it is one way of looking or talking about colonialism. But there are other memories. We cannot talk of one memory when we are looking at colonialism, but we are dealing with many memories, and these memories need to be approached from different angles, and we should appreciate whatever they say and not dismiss them as false, because even though we claim that there is one truth about colonialism, but there will never be that one truth, right? It can be a political observation that there is this one truth, but from an academic perspective there is never there's not going to be one truth. So we are trying in this book to present these different narratives, these different truths from different angles. That is the major thrust of our book, Remembering Colonialism in Zimbabwe.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
That is great, Dr. Marowa. Thank you so much for that. I want to bring in Dr. Ushehwedu Kufakurinani. The idea of decoloniality is very central to this book. Dr. Marowa just talked about it, and even from reading it, you will see that the aspect of decoloniality is emphasized much more. How do you see decoloniality being useful when it comes to memory studies and remembering?
Yes. No, thank you so much, Chikumbu, for having us here and for this opportunity to really share this experience. And I want to take it from the top really and say, the idea of sitting down as colleagues from the Global South. I remember when we came together with Marowa and conceptualized these ideas, and I was at the University of Zimbabwe, and we said, look, let's try to write something around memory. It was itself inspired by, trying to produce knowledge from the so-called periphery, trying to produce knowledge from the Global South, because one of the things that decoloniality tries to do is to decenter and dismantle Eurocentric or Western-centric knowledge systems. And then one way of doing that in a very concrete way is knowledge production. And so you would see even in the book that in terms of who is writing, we have people that are at that point really centered in the Global South. They may be affiliated elsewhere. But at that point, we were cultivating, knowledge production from the global south. Of course, the next step is to then try and think as we move forward around who then publishes and so forth and so forth. But that's a story for another day. But in terms of the production of knowledge itself, that's where we center our research within, and amongst scholars from the global south. Now, let me take you to the next step. So I'll give you an example of issues around place naming, for example, in the book there, where with a contribution around place naming and how the post-colonial state, made efforts to revisit colonial names and rename. But what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of what is happening on the ground? Does it contribute to a decolonial process where you begin to rethink coloniality? Because coloniality is also about mindset. It's also about things around you and things that you eulogize or valorize. So if you find yourself naming things in another language or with heroes from another place, you cease to valorize things around you. Your perspective is not decolonized in a way. So the book, when we present, for example, that kind of work, it's already speaking to decoloniality, right? Even decentering perspectives about who remembers and what is remembered, right? The book is about memory by ordinary people as well as by the elite. So you discover that we discuss and talk about the experience of people from Binga, for example, vis-a-vis their memories, or Matopos rather, vis-a-vis their memories around displacement and so forth and so forth. We talk about dress and dress culture and memories around dress and dress culture. What does that mean for a Zimbabwean dress or dress code for Zimbabweans and so forth? But we also bring another interesting level of memorialization, where we acknowledge that even the historian is also a participant in the process of memorialization. The historian can actually come into that space of creating memory. And some of the ways in which historians can do this is to elevate otherwise forgotten or unknown events or developments. That's where you have the contribution by Kusena on droughts and agriculture and so forth, Alvon and so forth, during the colonial period, or my contribution with Precious on this feminist housewife project, which is really quite a non-entity. Not many people would know about this organization, National Housewife Register. Even if you Google it, it doesn't even have a digital print. All right. So it's the story now that comes into that place, and so how you understand the process of memorialization, all right, becomes a part of a product where we acknowledge the role of the historian. So we are sort of seeing memory as a multiple space in terms of who remembers and who makes others get remembered, in terms of where is this memory taking place. So it has been decentered in a way. It has been dismantled, all right? It's not just a story about the elite or sometimes by the elite. That's how it comes with. In fact, come to think of it, Anotida, our book could quite be placed within a context of post-decoloniality. I want to pose that and challenge even you as colleagues that it goes beyond decoloniality, because while the story is about coloniality and how that has been ingrained in a people, and how that continues to be part of their memory, whether you want or you don't want, whether it's positive or it's negative. The way in which we present it is not just to talk about coloniality, but to also say, look, even people, some actually look at coloniality with, nostalgia, all right? But some use coloniality to their advantage, like the elite. They speak about coloniality, about or colonization, to be more specific, rather than coloniality. They speak about colonization. They use memory to actually extend a certain narrative, right? And that narrative is not necessarily a decolonial narrative. It's a narrative that may even bring other forms of coloniality when you look through. And it can even happen from even ordinary people when they make memories, and their memories extend a certain coloniality, or they resist a certain coloniality. All right, memories about the people in Matopo, when they look at displacement and so forth, they are seeing coloniality not just in the context of European imperialism, but they're also seeing a coloniality in the form of a post-colonial state that is contributing to their displacement in a way. All right, so I think that becomes something beyond just coloniality or decoloniality, if you want. And I could put my head on the block here and say we are beginning to open up another discourse in that paper, in that book, which could be a discourse around post-decoloniality in a way. This is just me thinking that this could be the beginning of a post-decolonial discourse.
Conversation. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Ushehwedu Kufakurinani. Dr. Marowa, I want to bring you back again. I saw that, you contributed. You are, so if I can say, you're the co-author, co-editor of the book, but there's also a chapter that you wrote, which is yourself, like chapter 2, which you titled, We Cannot Run Away from Our Shadow. In light of the ideas raised in this particular chapter, is there a role or space for individual memory within a group's collective memory? And can there be a global collective memory?
I think the starting point is that when we are talking of remembering, it is the individual who remembers, right? So the individual takes any initiative, he has the urgency to remember, and by remembering, it also includes the process of forgetting. So if you say you have forgotten, it is in a way your way of remembering the past. You are communicating a kind of remembering which you are denying as an individual. You can also suppress what you remember, right? So you can decide to suppress certain events and not let them known to other people. So it is the individual who is at the center of remembering. The group that we talk about possesses shared memory, shared remembering, but the group doesn't have a memory, right? But its memory is brought together by different individuals who remember the experience. So it is the individual's experience shared with other members of the group that then form a group memory. So these are bits and pieces that are taken from experiences that individuals have gone through, that they remember, and these experiences are shared, so they form a group memory. The same applies, to the global context. So when you are looking at the group or the global memory, you are seeing a narrow version of people's memories, or a narrow version of what transpired, the experiences that people. The group doesn't have a memory, right? Its memory comes from individual individuals who remember and tell their experiences. So when you are looking at memory, you cannot talk of one memory. You have to talk of memories, because different individuals remember differently. So their experiences are varied. They can have this the same experience, right? But the way they remember that experience is different. It is the remembering is caused by maybe the environment in which the memory is being told. It can also be affected by politics, by economics, by religion. It can also be affected by the time of telling itself. So if you talk to one individual today and you talk to them 3 weeks later, the memory changes according to time and space. So you cannot have a group memory that captures everything that happens. So that's why in this book we decided to have these different contributions that are looking at different aspects,
Oh, yes.
so that we try and collect as different memories as we can. Yes, we did not collect all the memories. There are many that still remain uncollected and that need historians, anthropologists, and so on to go and research and write about. But what is important is that memories are divided, memories are multifaceted, and the telling depends on who is remembering. And we are not emphasizing the global or the collective because of the narrow vision that you get. But of course there's always going to be a national memory, a collective memory, because the elites want a particular vision to be given. So if you look at Zimbabwe, you will see that from 2000 onwards, there is this narrative about the regime change that comes into place. The narrative that talks about the reversal of social and economic and political gains that came with the liberation struggle. So that's a narrow vision, at a national level, or at national memory. Now, if you go down and then talk to these different groups of people, you will get different versions of what happened during that phase, right? So the collective is there, right? The global is there, but it's narrow because it has been refined. It has taken what is shared by members, right? It's not about an individual. So this is why at times when you talk to the group, right, somebody will always come and say, when they were telling you this experience, they left this other part because what they experienced was not captured, in the group's memory.
Oh, yes.
So the group memory is there, but it's a narrow version. So in this book, we are trying to present these different memories so that we don't simply give a narrowed version of the colonial encounter. Thank you.
Wonderful. That is great. Thank you so much. Now, Dr. Kufa, let me now bring you back. I also understand you contributed your own chapter together with who, by the way? Remind me. I should acknowledge.
Yes, so it was a contribution with Precious Makoni.
Oh, with Precious Makoni.
So yes, I must say, and I'm really proud to have done this contribution with her. She took up a story that I had made reference to in my PhD and then book, which was the National Housewife Register.
Okay. Tell us more about that.
Oh yes. Yeah. So in fact, I must say when we sat down with Marowa to really see how we can make contributions and to look at the contributions that were coming through. Memory was coming in the format of largely what people remember. Your subjects. You go out there and you do research, and then what they remember is what you work with and you analyze and you give out there. But in terms of the word remember, I think we try to play around with that term in the book and say, look, we have and we have member, right? So when you remember, you are saying this was a member of this, but at some point when it was not part of it or it became excluded, now you want to bring it back. So you are remembering. So you are making an entity or a memory or an experience part of a past again, in a way, because it had been forgotten. So remembering is coming in as simply putting back into a historical space, right? So that's how we also, that's the second conceptualization of remembering. And we're saying at the center of remembering, a group, an entity, and experience to the past is the historian. So the historian plays a very critical role in doing that. So we have 2 chapters out of the 10 chapters that center the historian, that allow the historian to go out there and look for a seemingly useless or uninteresting subject matter. You know, the National Housewife Register, which is a white women's organization in a colonial space. And for your own information, you would agree with me, white women were part of the elite class. They were part of the dominant racial class. So they are not likely to be interesting. And so in terms of, and then you narrow to a specific organization that is now in the dustbin of history. And you take it out and you sort of, as a historian, make it a member of the past again. That's the idea of remembering. And I will be happy to even discuss why then this becomes critical for this specific book. So what then our chapter does is take this seemingly obscure and forgotten experience to tell a story of what we can call proto-feminism, if you want. You know, to demonstrate that even because when you read around feminist discourses, there's the idea that when you're a feminist, right, especially when it's radical feminism, they have this negative impression or negative reading of housewifery, being a domestic wife. You know, what does that mean? It means you have been taken away from the home, the public space where you can access financial resources, right? You can go and work and you are paid, you're given a salary. And when you get a salary, when you're paid, it empowers you. Your bargaining power is increased. You're able to negotiate. Even negotiate how you are treated in the domestic frontier. You have a say and a stake in that space as opposed to a housewife, and that it is argued that even reduces domestic violence in a way, because you can walk out of the home as you can take care of yourself. You can walk out of the home as you can. These are some of the arguments. Of course, there have been exceptions to that kind of thinking, or rule and evidence that has shown that you can actually have increased domestic violence, increased divorces, where you have women working, which increased working for women actually could mean that divorce becomes an option as a way of resisting to hegemonic patriarchies, to gender-based violence of various forms. Now, let me take you to the book, what it does in the chapter, what it does in a novel way, very novel way, I think. So Precious and I, what we do is to sit down and say, look, the idea that feminists can actually be housewives, which is now popular today. Can feminists be housewives? So you have now this idea and concept of feminist housewives that has become very popular. You Google, you go on the internet and so forth. Now people are, talking about being a feminist housewife, being able to, do it yourself, working from home and so forth and so forth, and they are elevating housewifery is something that is not antithetical to feminism, right? And it's being presented as something new. But what we do is in that chapter is to demonstrate that this is not new actually. It was probably earlier in the UK with the National Housewife Register, but in Zimbabwe, the National Housewife Register comes in the 70s, and the National Housewife Register is almost like a union of housewives, right? So these are housewives that come together, and then the frontier or the bring to the front the cause of women in the domestic space. And what they try to do is to advance women's interests, particularly those who are housewives, and to help each other liberate, themselves, not from housewifery, all right, but liberate themselves from other social pressures, including voluntary work, for example. Because there was this general, thinking that when you're a woman, you're supposed to be doing voluntary work. When you're a housewife, you have so much time to yourself, and you should be doing good in the community, some voluntary work, etc., etc. But the National Housewife Register is very clear that no, look, that is not our mandate, right? Fine, you may find one, but it's not ingrained in our mandate. So that drudgery or those social pressures and expectations of housewives, they wanted to liberate themselves from that. And even the stereotypes that when you're a housewife, you are idle, you're doing nothing, you're spending time, just wiling up and killing it and wasting it with games and so forth. They wanted to even liberate themselves from that kind of stereotype. So they were active in terms of education, all right? So they would encourage each other to meet in reading groups, educate themselves about the world and so forth and so forth, and really be open-minded in terms of and enjoy, give each other this company and enjoy their experience as housewives. Have a shared experience of housewifery, which they enjoy, and present housewives not as a boring and repetitive kind of occupation as radical feminists, for example, would present it. So they see, the improvement of women's status, their advancement is not antithetical to their positionality as housewives. Housewifery can be ingrained in advancing their interests, in advancing what they are passionate about, and that then, if it's not feminist housewifery, I don't know what else that is. And I love that part of how these seemingly opposing kind of terms, oxymoron, if you want, it's considered an oxymoron. How do you become a feminist and then a housewife? It's really considered an oxymoron. But we see the birth of such even as early as the colonial period. In the paper, we do acknowledge in the chapter that some of these efforts, like educating each other, coming together and advancing, and then sharing ideas about new work opportunities, it do have at some point the negative effect of eating into that space of housewifery, because now once people get educated, they are now eligible for employment. And then they begin to go out there and get employed and so forth. And the meeting times where they were meeting twice a week or once is now once in 2 weeks, because people are going to work and so forth. So there are these, of course, dynamics that we acknowledge that at the end of the day, it becomes self-defeating as you are, trying to reach out. But that's a chapter to discuss on a different day about the pros and cons. But the fact that we can see a very interesting phenomenon being birthed of feminist housewifery in the colonial space is really for us the kind of contribution that we bring to the table. by, remembering or remembering the National Housewife Register. That's the kind of discourse that we bring to the table.
Mm-hmm. That is wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, Dr. Marowa, as we round up, I just want you to, just maybe give us a brief conclusion of what you think are the key ideas that, any reader who gets to buy this book is going to enjoy.
So, yes. So, for the reader, when they get their hands on this book,
Mm-hmm.
they will get the idea that memory and history are sites of contestation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we are, we do have different ways of looking at things.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are looking for instance at the speeches by presidents at the Zimbabwean presidents at national holidays and national events, people will perceive them from different angles, right? So that shows you that this is a site of contestation, right? And when you look at place naming, you also see how power is being contested as meaning, political meaning is engraved onto the physical landscape. It's a process of saying, no, we have to give new meaning to the landscape. So you begin to see the landscape, becoming a palimpsest and something that that is showing the dynamics of power from the colonial government to the post-colonial government. So these are the kind of dynamics that you come across. The issue of the dress code, right? There has been a discussion of having a Zimbabwean dress code. So that chapter addresses those issues. Is there a Christian dress code? Is there a Zimbabwean dress code? What has been happening over the years? So it gives you diverse perspectives, and it's quite interesting, to read these ideas from different angles. So these are the kind of things that we present and that we encourage, readers, to get hold of this, potential readers to get hold of this book and critique the ideas that we have, so that we continue to produce more research and more arguments. Thank you.
That is wonderful. Thank you so much. So the details of the other contributors of the book are also available in the description panel on the upload for this video. Thank you very much, viewers and listeners. Don't forget to download a copy of this book. It is available right in the description panel on the upload for this video. My special guests today, Dr. Ushehwedu Kufakurinani, is currently a senior lecturer in international development at the University of Sussex. Dr. Ivan Marowa is a senior lecturer in the Department of History at the University of Zimbabwe. Thank you for watching.